fine for you quickly and give you a recap of what postpartum psychosis is, and then I'll introduce our guests. So postpartum psychosis, it's a serious mental health illness, and it can affect someone after they're having a baby. It can affect around 1 in 500 mothers after giving birth. And many people who have given birth will experience mild mood changes after having a baby, and these are known as baby blues, and this is normal, and it only lasts for a few days. But postpartum psychosis is different from the baby blues, and it's a serious mental illness, and it should be treated as a medical emergency. The symptoms usually start suddenly within the first 2 weeks after giving birth, and often within hours or days of giving birth. And more rarely, they can develop several weeks after the baby is born. And the symptoms can include hallucinations, delusions, a manic mood, a low mood, a mixture of both, a loss of inhibitions, feeling suspicious or fearful, restlessness, feeling very confused, behaving in a way that's out of character. So I just thought I'd recap what postpartum psychosis is, so we don't need to go into detail about the meaning of postpartum psychosis, because that's something we're going to be discussing today quite heavily. Today I have with you two guest speakers. We have Hannah. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Zebby.
And we also have Soukaina. Hi, Soukaina.
Hi, Zebby.
So Hannah, if you just wanted to give a little introduction about yourself, so the listeners can know who you are.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Hannah Galloway. I live up in Leeds with my twin girls who are 6, and my husband. And I had postpartum psychosis back in 2016.
Okay, and what about you, Soukaina?
Hi, I'm Soukaina and I'm a mother of 1. I live in Birmingham and I've had postpartum psychosis in 2010 and I was treated and admitted for it.
Okay, so as you know, my name is Zebunisa and I also had postpartum psychosis in July 2021. And I have a baby who's 9 months old now, and I'm from Leicester myself. So, Soukaina, if you can just tell us a bit about who you work for. I know you work for APP. If you can just give us a bit of a summary about APP.
Right, so APP is a national organization, and it's an organization that work with volunteers and peer supporters like myself to help support women and their families going through similar experience.
Yeah, so
and then and Action on Postpartum Psychosis was established in 2011.
Oh wow! So I don't think a lot of people have heard about Action on Postpartum Psychosis. So this is something that I came across when I was going through my illness. Hannah, did you hear about it? When did you hear about Action on Postpartum Psychosis?
After 3 years. So I had PP back in postpartum psychosis back in 2016, and in 2019, because I was probably well recovered enough by that point, I was looking for volunteering opportunities, and I literally typed in postpartum psychosis to the internet and came up with Action on Postpartum Psychosis, and spoke to Ellie, one of our national coordinators. She was the first point of contact I had, and she was probably the first person that I'd spoken to in those 3 years who had a really good understanding of the illness, because she's had the illness herself. And also it's the first person that has ever said to me, I'm sorry to hear that you had this illness, because she had that empathy of somebody who had lived experience. So it was a real breakthrough for me, I think. Yeah.
What about you, Soukaina? When did you hear about Action on Postpartum Psychosis?
I heard about them during the lockdown 2020. I was being redundant from my previous job, and I thought it's a good idea for me to volunteer. And I read about the charity and the work that they do, and I was thinking to myself, since I've had the experience, why not volunteer and share my own experience with the women so I can, give them hope. And it wasn't long that they had a job advertised as peer support, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this description really suit me and my personality. And I applied, for it, but I didn't really know that I would get the job. I was thinking, even if I don't get the job, I just want to volunteer for the women and, give them that hope that you need, as you are when you unwell, the midst of the illness, you don't feel that you are going to get better and you feel really lonely. So yeah, I did the interview and I got the job and I really enjoyed my role.
Wow. So what is the job that you have there with APP?
So peer support for facilitator. So peer support is a person with the lived experience or similar experience and is offered to the person going through that experience or similar experience by sharing your own experience of the what's going on, like in terms of the illness, and also sharing some effective tools and things that helped you during your recovery.
And how do you find it working with these women? What sort of behaviors do you see in these women? Is it similar to what you were going through? Is it relatable?
Yeah, I find the role doing it is very rewarding because you get to see the start of you having the chat with the women, and then you get to see the journey of recovery, and you get to be with them during the recovery, and then you get to see the result. It's almost like I would describe it as teaching, when you teach a child and then the child learns to read and then eventually they can read on their own. I see it like that. So I help these women going through the experience, and then I see their recovery. I'm with them in the recovery journey, and then I see them being discharged from hospital and they back to themselves, confident and happy. And what was your second question? Sorry.
No, it was just one question. But
how do you find it? Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So really, really rewarding. And the behaviors, I think you mentioned.
Yeah.
Behaviors, obviously, when women are unwell, they are in distressed. They are really in a shock state. They are confused. They need a lot of reassurance. And then what is a nice way to get reassurance from somebody that has been through the same experience as you and is standing example telling you that I was like you, once upon a time, and I made a recovery and I'm better. And they look at me and say, really? Like the reaction that I get from them sometimes is really priceless. They look at me and say, really, but you look well. And I share my experience. I said, yeah, I looked and I wasn't well and I felt unwell when I first came here, but I get better and I got better, and you also can get better as well. There is, hope at the end of this illness.
Alhamdulillah, that's fantastic. Alhamdulillah. So when was the last time when did you have postpartum psychosis, Soukaina?
I had it back in 2010. I know it sounds like a long time ago, but the reason I feel like, having postpartum psychosis back in the days, it's not what it is right now, because right now we have Action on Postpartum Psychosis, we have this organization, we have peer support, we have a lot of awareness than what it was back in the days. And we have also perinatal team. Back in the days, we had no perinatal team. You were treated by a mental health. They're not really specialists, but now you have specialists. In the world, you have psychologists, you have obviously the psychiatrist, the nurse, peer supporters like us. So now things have really improved a lot. But back in the days, it was not so heard of. And I always heard this, and it really annoyed me. They were saying to me that, your type of illness is rare. And when people say that to you, they make you feel really, really lonely, and it's already a lonely illness, and you keep hearing that. You're thinking there's nobody actually like me. And even when I was admitted, not many women were admitted with postpartum psychosis. It was just me and another lady. So it was difficult to share your experience and to be open about it and discuss it with others when you know that nobody's going to understand what's going on with you. That makes sense.
Yeah, I can imagine back, because you had postpartum psychosis in 2010 and APP only came about in 2011, so I can imagine there wasn't much support out there for you.
Yeah, and I felt like I couldn't talk about it. I felt like this is something that I can't talk about it because it's so bizarre that people are not going to understand me, or they're going to judge me as crazy, you know what I mean? So it was really, really difficult to be open about it, and you know, to get that reassurance. Right now, like, people are much more aware, and there's real awareness out there of you know, postpartum psychosis.
Coming to you, Hannah, in 2016 you said you had postpartum psychosis. Do you think there was much awareness in 2016?
It's difficult to know. I had no awareness myself. So I'd seen, when I was pregnant, I'd seen a BBC documentary which was called My Baby, Psychosis and Me. But the strange thing about seeing a documentary is obviously you can't see a mental illness. So I saw ladies who look very poorly, but you can't see inside their heads. So even though I'd seen that documentary in a way, when I came to be ill myself, it was still very much thought that PMD or postnatal depression was so common that that was the thing that people pinned every time somebody was ill postnatally. That's what the first port of call would be. So that was the first diagnosis for me, which was obviously incorrect. So I think awareness was maybe growing because of the media. But like I said, it's a tricky one because it still needed to improve, and the mother and baby units at that point were growing as well. So the one that I was in, Leeds, went up from 6 beds to 8, but that's covering the entire of West Yorkshire or even Yorkshire. So if we kind of imagine how many people get ill with, women get ill with severe perinatal illness, it's nothing. And I think now it's up to about 10. And with postpartum psychosis, there's usually very little option with it being a medical emergency, but for somebody to be in a psychiatric ward, unfortunately, or a mother and baby unit, because you need that support and you need to be safe, and your baby needs to be safe. And I definitely wasn't myself. I wasn't the Hannah I know now. So for that Hannah, the Hannah with psychosis who needed the support and things, the mother and baby unit at Leeds was perfect for me, because it helped me, like Soukaina said, it helps you to get all those skills back up and get your confidence back up and be in a safe place, really. So sorry, Sebi, I don't know if I've answered your question, but
no, that's perfect.
Awareness was starting, I think, through the media, but it's got a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say, so because I had postpartum psychosis last year, I didn't actually hear about APP, Action on Postpartum Psychosis. They did have leaflets in our mother and baby unit, but I don't think they were like giving them to individuals. So I think that's something you probably do, Soukaina. You probably give mothers these leaflets about APP, but it's something that they should promote maybe more, because there's a lot of information about postpartum psychosis on the APP website, a lot of stories that people can relate to as well. Soukaina, do you sort of give people information about APP when you're working in a mother and baby unit, or?
Because we work with women that are poorly, so I tend to give them information in drips, not in one go. They see my role, and I wear like an APP shirt, and I introduce myself when they first come to admission, and I say that, you know, I also been unwell. I've been admitted to this mother and baby that you are in right now. And then after that, we tend to do sessions like arts and crafts, and then the questions, and they get intrigued and interested to know a bit more about the organizations, organically, like naturally, just as I'm supporting them, and they start asking me, so how did you get to this job, and what is APP, so what support they're doing, or, you know, and then we start talking a bit more in details about APP, and I tell them bits of my story about how I got to find out about APP, and at least they know that after recovery, when they go home, there is support out there. Because when you're in hospital, you're being treated, there's a lot of support from staff and everybody, but then when you go, you become discharged, you realize that you are alone again. And yeah, so it can be, you feel that void. This is my own personal experience. When I was discharged, it was like bittersweet feelings, because I was really happy that I'm going to be discharged, but a little sad thinking that I'm going to be on my own and isolated. So organization like Action on Postpartum Psychosis, they help women to lessen that isolation and make them feel what they felt. Their experience was absolutely normal, and it's part of, part of parcel of some motherhood, and that. So definitely conversations with patients do come naturally about APP and what they offer, and and everything else. I think the beauty about this, I find it really useful when women get peer support from me, and then they discharge in the community, and they continue getting that peer support from me whilst they are in the community.
Oh, that's amazing. So the support is continued.
Yeah, it's continued throughout the MBU, and then when they become discharged as well. And they know me, and I was part of their journey, and I'm still going to be with their journey after they've been discharged.
Soukaina, it sounds like we need more of you in all of these mother and baby units.
Yeah, definitely. To be honest, I feel like APP, Action on Postpartum Psychosis, needs to be a nationwide organization, because I feel like a lot of women, do have postpartum psychosis. Does it get recognized? Do they get diagnosis? Do they get help? I don't know. Like, I personally I'm not from like Birmingham, or I wasn't born in Birmingham. I was born and brought up back home in Morocco. And I'm thinking, if that would happen to me, or somebody had postpartum psychosis, how is this illness treated, and how the women are, being looked after while they have the illness? So I feel like Action on Postpartum Psychosis is one of the organizations that needs to be worldwide.
Definitely. And I can imagine I know that you need a lot of support. So when you go back home and into the community, and you said you're from Morocco, so you must not have had many family members with you in the UK.
No, at the time when I was in Well, I was on my own, just me and my son's dad. And I used to spend a lot of time on my own. So even when I was deteriorating, there was nobody to tell me that. So can you imagine that I've actually kept deteriorating day after day after day, and then until I got to the point where I completely lost touch with reality. So and then it was like I was contacting my family. Then I was like, you need to get here. Luckily at the time, my mom still had her visa with her, so she came to support me after giving birth, and that whilst I was pregnant and gave birth. She stayed with me for a couple of weeks, 2 weeks I think, and then she left. And then I deteriorated, and then she came to support me, but they had no clue what's going on. They absolutely were shocked to see me in a, horrific state, I'd say, like really, really, really disorientated, not knowing what's going on. And I knew at the time that I wasn't well, but I didn't know, or I couldn't research, or couldn't do type in a research and find out what's going on with me. I was quite limited in terms of things that I could do for myself, because I reached a point where I was completely unwell.
Yes, I think we have all reached that point, and thankfully we've had organizations like the Mother and Baby Unit, the Perinatal Mental Health Team, and APP that have helped us out along the way. Sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I was just saying, thankfully we've had the NHS, with us, and APP to support us as well.
I have to say, when you're unwell, they really do come out their way, and they do come and help you. And I'm very thankful as well for their help. Hannah, I just wanted to ask you, so if you can just tell us a bit about how your story of postpartum psychosis.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. So like I said, I had twin girls 2016, so they're 6 years old now, and a blessing. They were a long time coming. So I had them via C-section, and they were born at 36 weeks. So I was in transitional care for 5 days with them, and actually was quite well when I was in transitional care. And I became symptomatic really when I was discharged and I came home. So I came home with my girls and my husband, and I started developing symptoms that I now recognise within probably a few days, becoming very paranoid. I started going from little sleep to no sleep, which I think is probably in common with you ladies.
Yep.
I had altered perception of time, so I stopped being able to keep track of time. And in fact, when I was in the mum and baby unit, I used to put a digital clock on my table because that used to help me keep track of time, really, but quite frightening. So what happened was my first port of call was my midwives, because having twins, I had twin midwives that were with me, thankfully, for the first 3 months. And so they thought I had postnatal depression, as did the GP. And so I was put on antidepressants, which seemed quite strange because I was never depressed. I had very erratic mood swings, but never remember being that low particularly. And I've just made some notes for myself, sorry, because it's just difficult remembering everything. Okay. So my symptoms got worse. My health visitor was a brilliant lady, and came to see me a few times and recognised that I was becoming unwell, thankfully. She actually said to me, I said, I'm very concerned about the girls, because I used to be very paranoid about harm coming to my babies. And she said, I'm not worried about your girls, Hannah, I'm worried about you. And that was the first time anybody had really said that to me. I reached crisis point, and when the crisis team came out actually at night to see me, and from there the perinatal team. So I had a visit from the mother and baby unit manager in Leeds, and can I just say, by this point we're at week 8. So wow. This was 8 weeks after my girls were born. So I was very unwell. I'd stopped eating, I'd stopped drinking. Thank goodness my girls were okay. I could still, as those mums do, I think my main thing was to keep my girls alive. So my babies were still being fed, but besides that, my self-care had completely gone. So a lady came up from the mother and baby unit and straight away recognised that I was unwell and said to me, we have lots of poorly ladies in the unit like you. And I said, what are you talking about, that I'm poorly? I'm not ill. Because as you ladies know, it's a very insidious illness, and it's very difficult to recognise that you're unwell yourself, because I was very paranoid about the world around me. So I was really fortunate that I was admitted to the mother and baby unit within almost straight away within the day, which was 4 miles from where I lived. And I spent 9 weeks in there with my girls, and my husband came every day because we were before COVID times. So we really kept together, and everybody had really supportive partners. But that's really where I started to. It's strange to start to get better, because I agree with your husband, Zebby, that I the first couple of weeks I actually got worse, which was a strange thing. The medication takes a while to take effect, and what I learned was that it didn't really stop the psychosis. It would shorten down the episodes that I had. So when I took it, my reaction used to be, instead of being unwell all day, I might be ill for a couple of hours or something like that, and it would shorten down when I was unwell. So I was 9 weeks in the mother and baby unit, had a bit of home leave, which is where they let you go home overnight and you'll have a nurse with you again. So they do it bit by bit, meetings every week to check how you're going on. I just have a big shout out to the staff as well at these MBUs, because it's not like your general psychiatric hospital. You have nursery nurses who help you support to play and care for your babies, all the feeding. You have your psychiatric nurses who are with you, doctors who are on call. So you're really well looked after, and they try and make it really homely. We had a Leeds MBU, we had a nursery, we had a baby group and a walking group on the ward. So it was a massive lifesaver for us, to be honest. Thank goodness for mother and baby units. Honestly, I don't know how I would have survived without it, or my girls. So I came out of there after 9 weeks, and I had a lady from the mother and baby unit who would visit each week. and that happened to the year marker, and I could still go to the baby group at the mother and baby unit, which was lovely because they were mums who'd been unwell as well. So I didn't have to broach into the real world in a way. I could still touch base, and we could talk about, our experiences outside. So that was really nice. So yeah, and that takes me up until the end of that year, really. Unfortunately, I had a repeat episode in 2018, but that wasn't postnatal. That was related to my daughter having appendicitis and the stress that put on me. But I would say having a second episode, although it was scary, I got on top of it a lot quicker, and I knew who to ring, and I recognised my triggers and my symptoms and recognised I was getting unwell, and rang the crisis team quite quickly, and I managed to be treated at home and stay with my girls.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so it was, so it's been a long road, but we're all together. That's the thing, we've all survived it, and I think that's what we can all say as well, isn't it? Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, I have to agree that all the teams, the MBUs, the perinatal team, all these teams do a fantastic job in helping you recover. And it's just about you trying to recover yourself, trying to engage with the system. So what sort of symptoms did you have when you were having postpartum psychosis initially, Hannah?
I won't go into too many details, but I probably say, similar to what your husband said, Zebby, I've ticked every box on the form about very strange disconnections with reality, very intense paranoia. I think paranoia is a word we throw about, but until you've actually experienced it and believe people are in a conspiracy against you, it's so I didn't really trust any sort of professionals, which made it hard to get a diagnosis, I think. Altered time perception, inability to sleep, which was horrible, because the one thing you really need to get better is to sleep. And I remember going to the mother and baby unit, and one of the first things they did was said, you need to sleep, and gave me some sedatives to help me sleep. And at that point, I hadn't slept in 4 days solidly. Like I said, just a disconnection with reality, really. It was almost like a waking nightmare, I would say, that you couldn't come out of. And then periods when you're lucid, as well, as you ladies know. So the strange thing about psychosis really is you're not psychotic all the time. So somebody won't display as unwell all the time necessarily. You'll have periods when you're completely well. And the difficulty I found was when I was well, convincing myself that I had been ill. So I think that's where it comes in, that your partners, your family, your friends are probably going to recognise you're unwell a lot more than you are yourself, because you trust your own eyes. You trust what you're seeing through your own eyes, and what you're hearing through your own ears. So if you're hallucinating and you're hearing voices and things, that's normal for you. But maybe if you're in a room and you're hallucinating and your husband's there, he might say, I can't see what you're seeing. There's something going wrong. So I think KPP have a campaign on it, don't they? So about a new mum seeming strange. And it really is true that if there are things that you recognise in a friend that just don't seem quite right, and you just have a look, it's better to be wrong and kind of say, okay, I think, this person might be unwell. I'm going to get some support. There's no shame in it. There's no shame in being unwell. It's the same as, physical illness. And it's taken me a long time to get to that point, to put away the guilt and the stigma of it. But, it's none of our fault that we've had this. It's just unfortunate, really, in a way, a perfect storm of things. So I would just say, if you think somebody is unwell with it, please get support. Like, please contact, perinatal team, APP, just talk through with somebody. Even if you're wrong, at least you've reached out. It's like I said, it's better to be wrong. If you imagine somebody having a heart attack in the street and you ring 999, they probably, even if it's not right, it's better to prevent what might happen than for that person to become really, really unwell. And it's similar with a psychiatric illness, that it's you've got to act on it when you think there's something going off, because the next day that person might seem perfectly lucid. I don't know about you ladies, but I had days when I went out with my friends, when I saw my parents, when I would sit and have meals with people, and I looked like nothing was wrong with me in between those times. So it's kind of catching those moments when somebody seems like they're acting out of character and saying, okay, something's going wrong. I need to do something about this, because that mum is responsible not only for themselves, but you've got the babies as well. So it's better to be wrong about it and to maybe, talk to someone and then take it from there. Like I said, no shame, no stigma. That's just speak out if you think there's something wrong with a friend. That's what I would say. I've talked for ages, sorry, Zebby.
No problem. It was good to hear your story. It was quite relatable for myself as well, because I went through a lot of those things that you mentioned as well. Keeping an eye on the time, acting a bit bizarre, out of character, and a lot of the things that you mentioned, I was going through the same things. I, like my husband said in the previous show that we had, I was hitting all the criteria for the definition of postpartum psychosis. So I had it quite bad, but I think we all have it quite bad. But with me, I was diagnosed within the first 10 days. I know you said you were taken after 8 weeks, so that's quite a long time. So I can imagine you deteriorated quite a lot.
Yeah, I had. So like I said, at the point that I was admitted, I stopped eating and drinking. So it doesn't really bear thinking about what would have happened next, to be quite honest. But my husband was still going into work, obviously, because we were keeping an income going, and he was badly sleep deprived himself and didn't know what was going on. But yeah, my self-care was definitely going down. I'm a person who usually, showers and baths every day and would, eat and drink normally. All those things have just completely gone out of the window. So I guess there may be signs to look out for as well in a new mum. And it might be postnatal depression, it might be postpartum psychosis, but probably is a sign that somebody's poorly if they normally look after themselves, and all those things have just gone out the window. So I was a complete shadow of myself, of my former self, really, as the illness had completely taken over me. I guess you ladies were probably similar, but it was, it's completely taken over every aspect of me. And that's really why you need to be in a safe place, because it's like getting rid of the illness and then building yourself back up again and getting to be able to be a mum again, I think.
I think they really do help you to get into the phase of being a mum. So it's really great. What about you, Soukaina? How was your story? If you can just tell us in just a short version, because we don't have much time left now.
Well, with me, I felt like I was like, it's almost like if I would describe baby blues as a station. So the first few weeks, I think the first 2 weeks, I felt like I had baby blues. And then the second couple of weeks, I had like postnatal depression. I was really depressed, and I was just like looking after my baby in a robotic sort of manner. And then to the point where I got lost sleep, and I felt that I didn't need to sleep. I lost so much sleep, and I felt like, well, I don't need it. That's what mums do. They just stay up and look after their babies, and they feed their babies. And at that point, that's when I really deteriorated and lost touch with reality. That's the sort of how I'll describe my how I was deteriorating. And because, like I said, I was quite isolated. I spent a long time on my own. It wasn't easy to spot the signs, if you know what I mean. I've been once with my friend, and I was just talking too much, way too much, and I think she felt that something is not right there, but then she just assumed that because I spend a lot of time on my own and I don't get to speak to people, that's why I'm sort of accumulated all these conversations in my head. So I deteriorated, and I think my husband at the time, he didn't know what to do. It's actually not knowing what to do in these cases that can be a little bit scary. But like Hannah has emphasized, that there is help out there for women feeling, even if you feel a little bit low and you don't feel, up to doing things and you're not enjoying what you're doing, seek help. it's really important to catch it early. Then, you know, things can deteriorate really quickly. So seek help. And even as speaking to the GPs are great at spotting the signs of even postnatal depression. They're really good at that. Another thing I remember, I've actually had, because I've had no history of mental health, I didn't know that it was anxiety attacks. So before I had postpartum psychosis, I had a lot of anxiety going out. If we were to go out, I'd be worried about how I'm going to change a baby, how I'm going to feed the baby. No, but people are going to be looking at me and things like that. So I was dealing with the great levels of anxiety, and some of them was physical anxiety. You know, when you debilitated that to the point where you have runs and runs of diarrhea, you know, that's what I've had. So I've had that for about weeks and weeks, and I couldn't eat and I couldn't drink, and I didn't realize that was anxiety. I just thought it's part of parcel of motherhood. At that point, being a new mom, you just assume things. You don't really tend to, well, that was my own experience. I was not seeking, I was not clarifying with other people, does this happen to you, or do you feel like that? Or because probably I was at that point deteriorating myself, so I didn't really check it with no one. I didn't say, you know, did you have this or did you have that? I had one good piece of advice from a midwife, and I felt I didn't follow it. She said that you rest when your baby's resting. And I was saying to myself, I was debating that, and I'm thinking, no, but then I've got to clean down my house, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. And I thought that being on my own, I can still keep up with the housework and the cooking and everything, just how I was living on, you know, just me and my husband. But I didn't take her advice on board while I was debating it. And you know, I felt like, well, I can't say that it's because I didn't rest, but sometimes you just can't help it. Your anxiety is not letting you sort of relax or rest. Yeah, I think the very first episode I've had was anxiety. But like I said again, just please check it. Even if you have anxiety, don't undermine it. Check your symptoms with your GP, and keep even a record if you can of how you're feeling. It's just no harm. It's like Hannah said, it's better to be wrong than not to do anything about it.
And definitely don't feel shy to seek support, because there's a lot of support out there. And if you don't know unless you ask, I'd say.
Yeah, I was going to say, Zebby, as well, just really quickly, I think one of my greatest fears was having my babies taken off me. And I think people need to know that mum and baby units are there to really try and keep mums and babies together. That's the ethos nowadays. So as unwell as I was, I managed to stay together with my girls. I had one night separate from them. And I'm so blessed for that, the relationship I have with them. Yeah, don't be afraid. They really do try, the perinatal teams, wherever possible, even if it's for a few nights, to separate you, to get you back together with your babies. So
yeah, I can imagine even I was having those feelings as well, where I didn't want to be separated from my baby. And I can imagine when you have twins and you're feeling so unwell, the feeling is more intense.
Yeah, I think the feeling, because it's almost the opposite from postnatal depression. I was absolutely obsessed with my girls, so I wouldn't leave them for a second. As Soukaina was saying about, I literally, my poor husband, I wouldn't leave him in a room with them. I was so frightened of harm coming to them, which didn't do me any good. So all that drive was there anyway. And then I cannot imagine if I'd been separated from them in a psychiatric unit, general psychiatric unit, and I hadn't had, which happens still in Northern Ireland, no mum and baby units. It needs to change.
I had that as well before I was admitted to mother and baby, because there was no space at the time. I was admitted to 2 different units, which made me feel actually worse. I actually deteriorated there, and they had to put me at home and treat me from home. The community team was coming to treat me because I had absolutely no clue what's going on. And because I had psychotic episode, I felt like I was in prison. They put me in some sort of special mother prison for being a bad mom. So it's not a nice feeling, because all the time I was speaking, I was saying that, that I'm being separated from my baby. I need my baby. I was just talking about my baby all the time, that I needed him by my side and I don't need this. So this is just me, that for like the mother and baby unit was full. So imagine those women that go in to general psychiatric ward to get treated away from the babies. It does not really help their recovery.
No, not at all. I can imagine it's probably very, very difficult. So I remember when you, Soukaina, you said rest when the baby rests. I think that was the most popular advice that I got given. As soon as people found out I was having a baby, I think that's the only advice I heard. That was the top of the list. And I was trying to figure out, what does rest when the baby rests mean? Was there any sort of other advice that you got before having your babies?
I got that advice as well, but I said, which baby? Because I had two. And one of mine had reflux. So she never really slept, bless her. And some advice I was given once was, well, you need to sit up all night with her. And I said, well, who will feed my other daughter? And so trying to think of advice I was given before. It's difficult to sort of remember. I think I had a lot of scare stories around the birth, and then I had a C-section anyway. But wow. Nobody ever mentioned postpartum psychosis. That was never ever mentioned ever by anybody else. So, but yeah, I think I had like Soukaina, I had the same advice: sleep when your baby sleeps. But with twins, that doesn't work. So.
Bless you. We all got through it in the end, though.
Yeah, we're survivors.
We're here to tell the story.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we only have a few minutes left now. So if you want to, what sort of advice would you give to new mums in general? Go, and then Soukaina, if you have a few words.
I'm going to stick to the original classical advice. Rest when your baby's resting. Rest is really important for a new mum. It's important for your body, mind, emotions, and we are so easily triggered at that time as well. So you have to look after yourself. Try to incorporate something that is going to be about you during the day, even if it's as little as watching a TV program, or doing something fun that is going to really sort of help you spend that time, or self-care thing. I know it's hard, I know it seems impossible, but I would say try to do that. And this is what I emphasize with women at the mother and baby unit, because we've got a whole team and we've got a creche time where the baby can go to creche. It's all about that mum alone time that she's going to spend. It's about her as well, whether they're doing craft or mindfulness or anything. That time is protected for her only, even if it's 5 minutes. Try and incorporate that in your day, because that's what's going to help you to recharge.
And what about you, Hannah? We have about 20 seconds, so if you have any last minute advice.
Seek support. So lean all your support networks. It's okay to have a takeaway or something. You don't need to be making meals every night and stuff when your baby's first born. If you get support from your family, your friends, whoever, if somebody offers to help you out for a couple of hours to let you sleep, that's okay. You're not expected to be Wonder Woman all at once. You're not changed completely. So give yourself a break. Soukaina's right.
And I'd definitely say my advice would be, don't forget about you. Sometimes when you're a mum, you forget about yourself, and you can have lack of sleep, and it can lead to other crazy things where you can go